Now I'd like to welcome our guest. He's a three-time NBA champion. He's a 14-year NBA vet. He's also a 14-year NBA coach. Not to mention he's an NBA Coach of the Year. He's a hometown hero. I'd love to welcome LA legend, Lakers guard, Byron Scott. Hey, Byron, thank you for joining us and welcome to the league. How you holding up today?
I'm blessed. I can't complain one bit. All is good here.
Brother, you know, we're dealing with some very unprecedented times right now. It's been crazy. What's your feelings on the protest there is going on and, you know, in some situations, the riots and looting?
Well, I'm all about the protesting. I think, again, we as a people, we've gotten to the point where enough is enough. All we're asking for is equality. And you know, we've always talked about, holding people responsible or accountable. Police brutality is something that we can't stand for anymore. And that has to stop. I'm not down for the rioting. I'm not down for the looting. You know, I think as a people, we got to make sure that we understand that there are so many different ways and better ways to express how you feel. We've all been angered, watching Mr. Floyd get murdered on the streets in Minneapolis on video. We've all been angered by all that. We've all been pissed off. We've all had pain, and some of us who have experienced being involved with police on different occasions, we understand, that we have a right to feel angered. But the looting, I think, are just a bunch of young people that's trying to take advantage of the situation. Like I said, I'm not down for that because I think it puts us in a bad light.
Mm-hmm.
But you also have to understand too, with the COVID-19 and being cooped up in your house for 2.5, 3 months, you don't have a job. People are desperate too.
Yes.
So I get it, but I'm just not with that. I'm not with the rioting as well. But like I said, peaceful protesting, I think, is the right way to go. But my question is to us as a people, unfortunately for me, I witnessed this 28 years ago with Rodney King.
Yes.
Not to that degree.
Yeah.
He lost his life, but we're talked about making a change then. And it happened for maybe a month or 2 months or 6 months or a year, and then everything went back to normal. I'm more into right now longevity. I want the changes to be longevity. I don't want this, this quick fix. I don't want this to last for a couple of months and then everything goes back to normal. I think, in our case here in Los Angeles, we got a great mayor. Eric Garcetti is a great mayor, great man.
I love it.
It starts with him as far as the police. The chief of police. I think they have to do a better job of screening, police officers because, these 4 guys have given police a bad name, and that's not right to a certain extent.
Mm-hmm.
Because everywhere in the world you have great police men and women that are in this for the right reason, but you have bad apples too, and you got to be able to weed those people out. In this world, to have police like that we saw be able to abuse their think it's okay. So our justice system has to take over as well. Those guys have to be prosecuted to the fullest of the law's ability. And then we as a people, we got to make sure that this is, like I said, longevity. We got to continue to protest and demand equal rights and that police brutality, brown and black people, is something that's just not allowed anymore.
How do you feel this compares to the Rodney King situation, just from a global standpoint? Does it feel a little different to you? Does it feel more expansive? What's your views of being able to have experienced both?
Yeah, it's a lot different. In 28 years ago with the Rodney King, it was basically here in Los Angeles, and everybody kind of kept it here in the state of California. It didn't venture out, like Mr. Floyd's has ventured out to the world, not just to the United States. I've seen people in Switzerland marching, and in Italy marching, and Dubai marching. So this is global. now, and I think it's to the point right now where, different day and time, you got a lot of people in the younger generation that didn't grow up that way.
Mm-hmm.
And as we all know, you're not born with racism, you're taught. That's something that is taught and ingrained in people
Yes.
to truly believe that they're better than anybody else, and that's not the case. That's the one thing, when I was growing up, my mom never told me to don't let anybody think they're better than you. She always used to tell me, don't you ever think that you're better than anybody else. You
Yeah.
treat people the way you want them to treat you. That's what she ingrained in me, So I'm seeing a lot of that now, which really warms my heart when I was able to look at TV and I see marches and protesters from around the world,
Yes.
that said this is enough. Your lives matter. That's a start. Having that conversation is a start. Number one, and I've said this before. White America, you have to educate yourself on us as Black Americans and why we feel the way we feel.
Yes.
And we have to educate, why do you feel the way you feel? Why do you feel privileged, that white privilege that we all talk about, to think that you are better than us? So I think the conversation has gotten started, which is a key. That's the first step. And we have to continue to have these conversations so that we understand that this is not something that's just going to be able to put a Band-Aid on it and then it's going to go away. This is, hopefully this is something. I got 2 granddaughters in there right now that I have, for the next 2 or 3 days to spend time that I spend time with. I don't want them to have to go through this. They're 8 and 6. I don't want them to have to go through this racism that I've had to go through all my life.
We're dealing with COVID as well. How is your family?
Right.
How are you guys holding up from that perspective? Are you guys safe? Are you healthy? How are the kids kind of dealing with that also?
We're both, man. We're safe. We're healthy. We to make sure, number one, that we took it serious, like a lot of people wasn't doing.
Oh, man.
We took this extremely serious because, again, it's another thing that I'm looking at, and I'm looking at. We're 4% of the population, but we're about 35% of us are getting COVID.
Oh,
and are passing away from it. So again, we got to educate ourselves and understand that this was a pandemic. This is something that's extremely serious, and we have to take serious measures against that. And my family and myself, we did that, and now we're just trying to get back out into the world with each other, as a family, and just kind of coexist and just abide by the laws that our mayor is putting out right now.
Absolutely. And one good thing is people just constantly having that communication, constantly knowing, okay, we can do the social distancing and still be able to coexist, see each other. My brother went to go see my mom a few days ago from DC, and he went down to North Carolina, where we're from originally, where I'm from. And they were 12 feet apart, but he got a chance to see her. So as long as we can continue to do that, knowing that it's still out there, that's the best thing that we can do to kind of fight and get through this. Because of the pandemic, I know you started getting involved in a medical scrubs company that is called, I believe, Medi-Zip. And how did you get involved in that? Can you tell me a little bit about it?
Yeah, my business partner, John Askew, like I said, with Prime Time, we kind of saw this, and our other partner in this is John Starks, for the New York Knicks.
Okay.
And John brought it to us. So he had this great idea, and we looked at it, and we was like, man, this is pretty cool. But he was thinking sweatsuits for the NBA. So he's trying to get it past the NBA.
Mm-hmm.
And we just kind of took it to a different level. We just started talking, because my wife's a registered nurse. And so she thought it was a great idea. And we said, you know what, we should do this with scrubs, because she was the one that was saying, listen, when you zip it off, you don't have to worry about, having it, that contamination of all the stuff that you endured that day as a nurse, pulling it over your head, getting it in your face, your hair, and everywhere, and all of a sudden you infected with it. Being able to zip these off and just throw them in, being able to, zip the pants off and throw them in the washer. We all thought, man, this is pretty cool. So obviously after that, it's just a matter of just getting them designed, and we got them to my wife, who demonstrated it on her Instagram. And she has so many, friends and nurses that are in that field, and people went crazy, so we just said, man, this is a great idea. So we made sure we got the patent on the zipper and everything to say Medi-Zip, and And now it's just now, getting it back out there on the market. And, the demand was big that first couple of months.
Yeah.
It's kind of died down a little bit, but we also in the process of changing a few things with it,
Okay.
but once we get it back up, we will, it's going to do great, because I think a lot of nurses understand exactly what we're saying. You can just take these suckers off without having to, contaminate your face, your hair, and things of that nature, and take it home to your family. You can just take these, zip them off, and just put them in a bag. And we also have a second one, which is a disposable one.
Oh,
You can just, throw it away. Zips it right off, and you can just throw it away. So those are our two scrubs that we have, and we only have 4 colors right now. I think it's black, white, a light blue, and a green. So we're gonna up the ante a little bit more before this year is over, and just see if we can really just get these out to the nurses as much as possible. But during the COVID-19, especially the early part, we donated 3,500 to the fine people, the nurses, and the doctors in the New York area. So we were trying to do our part as well.
Speaking of the pandemic, we just obviously heard that the NBA is announcing that they're going to be coming back in late July next month, with like a modified season, small season. I think it's like 22 teams, and then from there they'll have a playoff up until a final, which could go up until October. What's your thoughts on that strategy?
Well, you know what? Right now, I'm with any strategy that the NBA wants to do. I just want to get them back on the basketball court. I think as a country, we need it. Sports is such a big part of our lives. So especially the NBA coming back, I think that's the start of us healing as well, and it's something that's definitely needed. That entertainment of having our guys out there playing the game, and our fans, people who love their teams and they're diehard fans. I'm sure they can't wait to have the NBA back as well. So, I'm a big fan of Adam Silver, our commissioner. He's done a fantastic job ever since he took over this league. He had a great mentor, obviously, in David Stern. So I'm excited. I'm excited for NBA basketball to come back. It's going to be, it's going to be a different feel to it, because we're starting off with this with no fans. So that's going to be different. It's no doubt about that. But I think at the end of the season, when it's all said and done, and we have a champion that can hold up that trophy, it's going to not only help the sports world, it's going to help the world in general. Because, like I said, the NBA has fans around the world, and that's something that's very important to us. So I think this is going to be great. It's the first step of really healing our country. It's putting these guys back to work and letting them do what they do best.
Absolutely. Because we need that distraction. You get drafted by the San Diego Clippers, and then you get traded to the Los Angeles Lakers. How is that feeling to know that you are now playing professional basketball at that time in the city that raised you, essentially?
That was a great feeling. I mean, the first great feeling, obviously, was just being drafted. I was the 4th pick in the draft. I was the first guard taken by the Clippers. And I was ecstatic about that, because number one, it was in San Diego, so that's not too far from LA. That's a couple-hour drive. And I felt my mom and my dad, my family, they could come see me play. So I was ecstatic by that. But when we couldn't reach a deal, on a contract, and Jerry West called me one day and said, "Listen, we're trying to make a trade for you today, and if it doesn't happen by 3:00, it's not going to happen. We've been working on this for the past 2 weeks." Man, I almost fell on the floor. I was like, "Oh my God, I got a chance to be a Laker." The team that I idolized growing up.
Yeah.
And so when that happened, I was so proud, and I was so happy to be traded to a franchise that, number one, had Magic Johnson, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and Coop, and those guys, but number two, it was an organization that was all about winning. And so that made it that much more attractive to me. So I was extremely happy and so blessed and proud to be traded to the Lakers.
Shortly after you started in the NBA, you start winning championships, 85, 87, 88. Which one of those championships do you feel was the toughest one, though?
I think the toughest one, and I'm sure a lot of my guys, Magic, those guys are probably echo my sentiments on this. That 88 one was the toughest. 85 was great because it was the first one. Beating the Boston Celtics was the first Laker team to ever do it, so that was an unbelievable feeling. And then doing it again in 87 was great. But 88, trying to win back-to-back championships that hadn't been done in 20 years.
Wow.
And going against the Detroit Pistons with and Joe Dumars and them dudes, man.
Yeah.
And we had just a real tough road. I think we had we played every game, every series except the first series, went 7 games. I think we played Dallas or Utah for 7 games, and then Dallas and Utah for 7 games for the Western Conference Finals. Then we got the NBA Finals. We got 7 games to go to beat Detroit. So I say that was the most taxing series that we've ever played, and it was the toughest championship that we won, and it was the most gratifying, to be honest with you, as well.
And speaking of tough series, what's your whole thoughts on just the physicality of the game back then versus it is now?
Oh, it's no physicality to the game now. Back then, man, you had the crap out of each other, and if it was no blood, as Chick Hearn used to say, no blood, no foul. You just get up, shoot your free throws. But if you ran through the line in the 80s, we used to tell each other in practice, you run across this paint, you're gonna get hit. It's as simple as that. So expect it. Don't be surprised by it. And now in the NBA, they got all these different rules. If you go across the lane and you get hit, it's impeding progress. And all that stuff. But and I'm not taking away anything from the game today, because the game is a beautiful game. I'm always loved the game of basketball. It's my first love.
Absolutely.
And watching these guys play today and watching their athleticism, one of my favorite players obviously is LeBron, but one of my favorite players, besides LeBron, is Kevin Durant. You see a 6'11" guy that can handle the ball the way he does, shoot the ball the way he does. If you were 6'11" coming in our league in the 80s, you were a power forward. That's just how it was labeled.
Yeah.
So these guys are playing positionless basketball where, you got a 6'11" guy that can play point guard now. So it's a beautiful game to watch. It's just a different time and different era where our game was a whole lot more physical, but we still got up and down the court. But this game nowadays is a lot more finesse, and that's the biggest difference.
I have to ask you this: who do you feel was the toughest guy for you to guard during your time in the league? There was a lot of bruises, but
no question.
Pinpoint one guy.
Oh, yeah. That's easy, Michael Jordan. I don't have to think about that one. He was by far, for me to guard, the toughest guy to guard, because he had no weaknesses. He could go left, he can go right, he could put it on the floor, he can catch and shoot. He can get by you because he was so quick and he had such great ball control and ball handles, and then the leaping ability and the speed. So he was the total package as far as when you look at players today. If you want to emulate a player that has everything, Michael Jordan had everything. Like I said earlier, no weaknesses on either end of the floor. And then, if he wanted to on the defense end, he could shut you down. I mean, he was just a complete player. He had the big hands, so he can, just carry the ball wherever he wanted to. So every time we played against Chicago, I was like, okay, the one thing I want to do is make him shoot jumpers all night and not allow him to get to the basket. And in order to do that, I'm going to have to give him space and sometimes almost try to embarrass him to shoot it. And that was the one thing that he was great at, but he could still make shots. But I would rather him, take, 15 to 20 footers than to let him get around me and get to that hole where he's dunking it or laying it up or dishing it off to somebody. But easy answer. Michael Jordan was by far the hardest and the greatest player I ever played against.
And that's dear to my heart because I'm a Carolina guy. I went to UNC. So out of all the guys that you played with in the league, who would be your favorite teammates ever?
Magic Johnson. You talking about the ultimate teammate, the ultimate point guard. Again, we're going back to different eras, but in the 80s,
of course,
a true point guard was a pass first, pass second, score third type guy. Mm-hmm. And Magic Johnson was that. He wanted all his teammates to do well. He wanted us all to play well. Never thought about himself. Always thought about the team. Pat Riley had to force him to be more offensive minded, and told him, if you're more offensive minded, we're going to be a better team. And he really was like, really? How do you figure that out? But truth be told, it was true. I mean, it made people have to guard him even more so when he started to get more aggressive offensively. It even drew more attention to him, which gave me even more freedom, and it gave James Worthy more freedom, and guys like that. But he was the ultimate teammate. I mean, he would give you the shirt off his back, and like I said, he all he wanted to do, and he didn't care if he scored 2 points or 22 points. He just wanted to win. So he was by far my favorite guy to play with, and he was my boy. I mean, we hung out, nights before the games. Me, him, and Michael Cooper. We were like the Three Musketeers. We went to dinner, we went to movies. When we were in LA, our wives were with us at dinner and movies, stuff like that. So I mean, we got to really be very close on and off the court. So he was the ultimate teammate.
Kobe Bean Bryant. God rest his soul, first and foremost. What do you think he meant to the Laker organization and the league as a whole? If you could just sum it up.
Well, first of all, he spent 20 years in LA. Mm-hmm. He was the face of that Laker organization for so many years, and I think the same with the league. Kobe was, all about basketball. He was all about bridging gaps. He did a lot of things that people don't know of behind the scenes when it came to mentorship, community relations. The things that he did, a lot of people didn't know about because he didn't want people to know about. He just wanted to do his thing.
Yeah.
But I think what he meant to the NBA was the same thing. He was the face of the NBA for a long time as well. Mm-hmm. And for the Laker organization for Los Angeles, you're talking about a tragedy in a day that we'll never forget. That January 26th or 24th, I can't remember exactly because I remember getting ready to go to church when my wife come running in the room saying, TMZ just said Kobe died. Screaming, and I was like, no, I don't believe that. So he was bigger than life here. Yeah, he was an unbelievable dude, man. Believe me. He would call me sometimes at 6 a.m, mm-hmm. Asking me what we're gonna do for practice. And you go back to sleep, man. I'll see you tonight, for the game. Get some rest. I don't need, But he just meant the world, I think, to Los Angeles because he represented the city of LA extremely well, and he made everybody here proud to be Laker fans.
In 07-08, you actually won NBA Coach of the Year. Now, what do you think?
Yeah.
What do you think you implemented that year that made the season so successful?
Well, I got real smart and said, I'm gonna get a ball of this little kid named Chris Paul and let him do his thing. You know what? I had a really good team, and we were just primed to have a good season. We did real well in draft by drafting Chris Paul. We drafted J.R. Smith, and we ended up trading later on. But and then we signed Chandler and Paige Straukovich. We had a guy named David West who was ready, just coming up. We made a couple of trades to get some very low level, if you want to call them low level, name players, but we felt they could be really good in our system, which was, rest his soul as well, Rasul Butler.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
We were just able to develop a chemistry. And the one thing I would always say when I was coaching, I said, if you give me good talent as a coach, and I can form great chemistry, we'll be very successful. I don't need great talent, but if you just give me good talent and great chemistry, we'll win. And that's what we had in New Orleans. We had great chemistry. Guys really, truly loved each other and cared about each other and wanted each other to do well.
Yeah.
And my job at that particular point, to be honest with you, Newton, was put everybody in the position to be successful. Yeah. And I was able to do that. And those guys, they took the ball and, did their thing. And we had a fantastic season. Came a little short, of our goal, but we had a team that was up and coming. And we thought if we would have kept them together a couple of more years, we had a chance to win a championship.
Speaking of championship and even NBA finals, just a couple of years prior to that, you were coaching the Nets, and you actually went to the NBA finals 2 years in a row. How was that experience for you? What do you think made you successful at that point? Because once again, not every player can transition to being a coach.
The transition for me wasn't that hard because of the fact that I was already preparing myself for coaching while I was playing. My last couple of years of playing in Indiana, I was preparing myself. Pat Riley had told me when I was 26 years old that I would be a good coach one day, and I told him he was crazy. I was in my 5th year in the NBA. I wasn't thinking about coaching. I was thinking about playing another 10 years or whatever.
Yeah.
And then I go to Indiana. I got great coaching Larry Brown at the age of 32, who said, "Man, I don't know if you ever thought about this, but I think you would be a heck of a coach." So
Yeah.
when you have those two guys, telling you the same thing, I started keeping a journal and I started really paying attention to what I would do in certain situations as a coach. So I was preparing myself at 32 years old when I got my first head coaching job at 36. So I was pretty much ready for the challenge. But in Jersey, we made some big time changes after my rookie year. We had 3 great draft picks that we were able to get. We had Kenyon Martin, and we were able to trade and get Jason Kidd, which made the biggest difference in the whole world because we were talking about the best point guard in the league at that time. So when you have that type of guys on your squad and they're all motivated, again, it was just making sure I put a system in place that could make sure that all these guys touched the ball and they were all able to play together because Jason was all about sharing the ball. And we were very successful as far as, like you said, getting to the finals 2 straight years.
After your coaching career, you decided to start your own league.
Yeah.
Can you tell me a little bit about that, the Primetime Basketball League, and what inspired you to do so?
Well, Primetime Basketball is a league that we, myself and John Askew, my COO of the league, decided to put together because we just saw too many NBA players that were kind of being pushed out of the league and they could still play. There's not a guy retired. They basically are pushed out. The NBA has gotten younger over the years, and with that happening, you get a lot of veteran guys being kind of pushed to the side because number one, guys are younger. Number two, they don't cost as much money. A veteran guy is going to cost you anywhere from $1 million to $1.5 million per year, where you got a young it costs you $200,000 to $300,000. So you save a lot of money and you get younger. So we decided to do this league so that those guys can continue to play the game that they love, continue to make some money, continue to carry on their brand. But the one difference in that league that we decided to do, Newton, is that I was real big into making sure guys were able to transition after basketball. So life after basketball. There's too many guys in our league that, when they're done with the NBA, 4 years later, 87% of the guys are broke. And that's to me astounding. That shouldn't happen with all the money these guys are making. So one of the reasons that I want to do this was from a financial standpoint is to make sure that we have financial institutions in place to mentorship these guys on how to keep their money and how to make their money grow. And once the guys are out of the limit, one thing that they do have a little more of is humility. Now they're more willing to listen. When that crowd is not clapping like they used to, or you're not getting the calls like you used to, as far as people from everywhere wanting you to do this and wanting you to do that. When that kind of goes away, then guys start to think about what they're going to do after basketball. Well, this league is going to prolong their basketball career, enable them to make money as well, but also not only to make money, but to keep money and hopefully make their money grow with the other people that we have involved. So it's something that we started 4 years ago that we started thinking about. We finally were able to test it last year. The league will start this year, and then obviously, COVID-19 put a stop to that. So we're going to either start later on in the season or later on in this year when the NBA is over, or we're going to wait until 2021. So it's just a matter of right now, just sitting back down at the table and trying to figure out what's the best for our players.
And you spoke something that really resonates. Transitioning, guys transitioning, still being successful, still being able to function. Because I played overseas, and it's hard when you stop playing and now you're, a civilian, quote unquote, and you're trying to find other opportunities or something that can give you remotely the same passion as when you play. You transitioned into being an author as well, which is amazing. Can you tell me about your book, Slam Dunk Success, and how did that whole situation come about?
Absolutely. It's funny because I met a friend of mine who's now my business partner and the guy that wrote the book with me, Charlie Norris. We met at Equinox Gym 17 years ago, and we got to know each other, started working out together, and we found out that we had a lot of similarities and a lot of stuff in common, even though he's a little short Jewish guy and I'm this tall Black African American guy. We found out we had a lot in common. And we one day we were laying on the mat and he said we should write a book, and the book should be on leadership, because he runs a bunch of companies. He was the CEO of McKesson at the time, which is a water company. Now he's the CEO of a company called Fresh Pet, which is the fastest growing dog and cat food in the country. So he was the one that came up with the idea of writing the book. And so we sit down and we start talking about it, and we start going through chapters that we thought would be interesting, and our similarities in running a business and running a basketball team and how they kind of interacted. So that got us started, and we figured we couldn't write it ourselves. So we got a ghostwriter named John Warwick who did a fantastic job. And the book has two arcs. Number one, it says, we always said, don't judge a book by its cover, because you look at the cover, you see these two gentlemen that look nothing alike. Myself and him, we look nothing alike, but we have a lot of stuff in common.
Yeah.
And that's the thing I'm trying to get across. And especially what's going on today, this is so important, to see that you can have people of different nationalities, they can get along extremely well and have things in common that you never would have known about if you didn't spend the time with them to just have a conversation.
Yeah. And Byron, we had that time frame where we had no sports, of course. And then the Last Dance came up with Michael Jordan, the documentary on their 6th championship. What was your take on that documentary? And
being on a basketball team or any team, as it's like a family. So you're going to have your disagreements. You're going to have your arguments. You're going to have your fights.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, when you're on court, you are all one united front. And you go out there and you play as one. And you have each other's back. And I think Chicago, they showed that, throughout that documentary, that they went through stuff, mentally as well as physically, in dealing with Dennis Rodman, some of his antics and some of the things that they had to deal with Dennis. It wasn't all, all roses. They had to work their butt off. They had some negative things that were happening with the organization that they were able to all put that to the side when it came to the basketball game, the game that they loved, the game that they played on that court. And I think for that, you got to give them a lot of respect to be able to play the way they played with all the turmoil that they had going on throughout the organization.
So Byron, one last question. I know you go out and sometimes feed the homeless and do different charity work. Is there anything specific that you like to highlight that you're currently working on or doing right
now? Thank you. I appreciate that. You know what? Community of Friends is an organization that I've been involved with for the past 4 years that deals with the homeless situation that we have here in Los Angeles, and mostly the housing. And they have to go through a screening process to get accepted. But as you guys know, we got probably the richest country in the world, but we got the most homeless people in the world as well.
Yes.
And it's a big problem that we're having, especially here in Los Angeles. So me and my wife, one of the other things that we try to do every week is we go down to South Central, to Compton, and even places in Hollywood, and we just try to feed the homeless. Our church, Good Shepherd in Beverly Hills, is fantastic. And our Father Ed is unbelievable. So we'll go meet with him, and we'll make sandwiches all day, and then we'll go down and we'll feed the homeless as much as possible until we run out of food. So that's something that I'm seriously involved in. And if you guys want to go onto Community of Friends and look them up and see what type of organization it is, if you want to donate money to them for this cause that we're trying to eradicate, which is going to be a tough job, but it's something that we want to do. And I want to say one last thing, and our mayor, Eric Garcetti, said this too. When this pandemic is over, I don't want it to go back to normal, because normal for Los Angeles was that, again, we had more homeless people than anywhere in the world. We had the worst traffic than anywhere in the world. We don't want those things to go back to normal. We want to keep this great air quality that we have all of a sudden, and we want our homeless to be fed and housed. Those are two major things that I want to see. That's a big change here in Los Angeles, and hopefully in other states where people have things that's going on. You're taking a look at that and saying the same thing as I am. We don't want those certain things to go back to normal.
Absolutely, and you hit it on the nail. I think with this pandemic, it's allowed people at all levels to unite from a standpoint that we're all going through this together, and now start to dissect the different problems that are very relevant, that if people didn't have this time to actually look at these problems, they would overlook them.
Oh, I'm not dealing with it, so
Right.
it has nothing to do with me. Now, these things are coming
Right.
to the forefront, and now we have an opportunity as a community, no matter what color or nationality you are, to band together and work on resolving these issues. Byron, thank you so much for your time, NBA legend, NBA great. We're so excited and happy that you came and took this time out with us here on the league. Please continue for yourself and your family to please be safe. We're still in this pandemic, and I pray that you guys continue to just keep each other, brother. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Newton. I appreciate it anytime, brother.